So a lot of people say that you can't do Blight Ravaged on day 1, day 2, that you need a lot of gear. You don't really need a whole lot of gear. What I'll show you now is essentially how to do Blight Ravaged on 2 pieces of gear, plus or minus the layout and mobs screwing you. As long as the layout's not bad and the mobs don't just magically have crazy things, you should be able to go through Blight Ravaged relatively easy. First and foremost, Blight Ravaged are the essential tier 16 Uber variant, or tier 17, or whatever you want to call them, Uber variant of Blighted maps. Blight Ravaged maps are tier 14, tier 15, and tier 16, and the tier of the Blighted map doesn't matter because once they are Blight Ravaged, they're all the same Uber. Blight Ravaged maps come with a very unique modifier on them that says they can be modified up to 9 times. To modify a Blighted Ravaged map, or a Blighted map in general, you get to use the oils that are in your stash to make these maps easier. Now, because we can anoint Blight Ravaged 9 times, the easiest way to do this on day 1 is to reduce the cost of building and upgrading your towers, which is triple amber oil. You're then going to use triple sepia oil so that your towers deal more damage, because since we won't have gear theoretically on day 1, we're going to need to have an answer. And then we're going to use clear oil. Clear oil is going to reduce our monster movement speed to make things a little bit easier. Now, since we're doing Blight Ravaged at this point, we have assumed that we have accumulated a little bit of gear and a little bit of currency. So getting these basic enchants or oils should be on the relatively easier side. On top of that, because we're doing Blight Ravaged, we have to have 2 very specific things, or this will not work. Or first and foremost, you need to have your ring be anointed with Chilling Towers freeze enemies for 0.2 seconds while they're affected by chilling beams. Essentially, what that means is when I build a level 3 freeze tower, it will be known as a chilling tower, and it will freeze our enemies. To anoint a ring, you put your ring here or talk to Cassia. The chilling tower anoint is 1 silver and 1 opalescent oil. This will be a little bit expensive on day 1 and day 2, but the cost will be very good. The second anoint that we want will be the Meteor Tower's burn. This will give us an alternate way to deal damage to our enemies. Now, when we're creating and running and doing our Blighted maps or Blight Ravaged maps, we're going to do the exact same thing we would normally do. We would chisel our map, and then we would alch our map. There are a couple things that we want to avoid while doing these, because these maps are a lot harder and we're going to rely more on the towers. We want to make sure that our map doesn't have monsters can't be stunned. I'm looking for it actually right now so I can show you guys what it looks like. We want to make sure that we don't have monsters can't be stunned. We'd like to avoid additional energy shield if possible, you know, that whole life as extra energy shield. And we want to avoid the whole can't be impacted by ailments. So this map right here, monsters cannot be stunned. Very bad. You do not want to do this. This line will completely break your map. 100% not worth doing. Will literally ruin everything that you're trying to do. So monsters cannot be stunned. You will literally, if you see that, you will not run your map. You will ignore your map. You will just skip it. So you'll pretty much just go through your maps as you can normally. And like I said, you want to be able to do a map that won't really ruin anything, but still be a little difficult. So we're going to grab our map. I don't think I have the fragments. Oh, I do. Okay. So when we have our map and we have our map rolled, we're going to want to juice our maps a little bit more because they're Blight Ravaged maps. So you could see I was actually doing maps earlier. We're going to be putting in our sack fragments. Our sack fragments give our maps extra quant and everything. And we're going to be activating our Blighted map. Now, for this test here, this character is a cast when stunned character. I'm going to keep my gear on so that I don't accidentally die, because during Blight Ravage, you would have gear on, but I am going to remove the cast when stuns out of my gear so that I can't attack. So first thing first, we're going to go into our map. We're going to reveal our map because these are Blight Ravage and these are a little bit harder. And if things start to go haywire, you know, you'll have to do some attacking and so forth and so on. We're going to come to our Cassia. We're going to activate our pump. Now, these lanes will dictate if we can complete this or not. Maps that have these fisting towers and freezing towers are going to be the lanes that are going to be a pain in the ass. Essentially, we want to use the fisting towers and the freezing towers and an empowering tower just like this. This combination will stack all of the mobs in place and stop them from moving. So this right here makes everything very, very, very simple, and nothing should be able to get through there. On top of that, we also want to be able to deal damage to the enemies, so we're going to be building some fire towers to deal some damage. Now, this is the Meteor tower here, and this is the tower that'll deal a whole bunch of damage and leave burning ground on the floor. And other towers that are really good are going to be our scout towers. Now, things to note, if it has the fisting symbol or the ice symbol or the meteor symbol or any of the symbols in the lane, it will essentially be immune to that type of tower and you will not be able to deal damage. A way to tell which lanes are on and which lanes are off is the brown grayish dots are lanes off, and the lanes that turn on, as you see, are the yellow lanes here. Now, inside of your Blight Ravaged maps, your mobs will spawn, and your tier 3 chilling tower, which is this tower right here, as you can see, is just stopping all of the mobs in place, and you really don't have a whole lot of anything to worry about. Now, what we'll do, because we're trying to keep our mobs pinned, is we will look for these very essential choke points that you see how we're building right here, and we'll build ourselves a bunch of towers inside of these choke points to give us the most optimal way of freezing our enemies. Now, you can see on the minimap, enemies are getting frozen. They're not really able to move. They're getting to these choke points and they're essentially stopping. The hardest thing about Blight Ravaged maps in general, and you can see they're frozen there, the hardest thing that's going to be is your ability to, think on your feet and move quick. You're going to lose a lot of maps. You're going to fail a lot of maps. You're not going to successfully complete maps until you practice this a lot of time. Tower defense games in general have always been very difficult for players. Players get overwhelmed. They don't know what to do. Things become a little stressful. And it's just something that you're just going to have to get used to. The idea is you're always going to build tier 3 empowering, tier 3 chilling, tier 3 fisting, and then you're going to build a bunch of damaging towers. One thing a lot of players do with Blight Ravaged or Blighted maps in general is they choose to not build towers, or they get overrun, or they panic, or mobs stack up because they don't have damaging towers, and it just becomes this overall mess where players just have a really hard time. If you have too many mobs on the map, essentially what'll happen is the game will just eventually push the mobs through. So you can have all the ring annoyance that you want, you can have all the perfect tower setups that you want, but if your mobs are not dying, they're eventually just going to push through the towers, and there's nothing you can do about it. Now, if you do manage to get these really weird layouts or things that go sideways, it is okay. Sometimes you will lose a map and there's just not a whole lot you can do about it. You are sometimes just at the mercy of certain layouts being good and certain layouts being relatively bad. If you do get a lane like this, where the mob is immune and will start walking through your tower and everything that's going on, there is a small solution that you can make. And this is only when things start to go sideways. You can actually build a glacial cage tower, and this tower will put a small temporary cage around the enemy, and this cage will temporarily stop the mob from moving, but it'll not be a safety guarantee. You can see here, this boss is just completely stunned. There's nothing he can do. He cannot walk, cannot progress. He is just at the mercy of our towers right now, and just like that, you were able to essentially just clear a Blight Ravaged map. You can see right there too, that's the caging tower that I had referred to, and that's stopping the mobs in its place as well. What we'll do, because we have amber oils and because we're utilizing amber oils, we will be able to build a lot of excess towers for relatively cheap. And it just gives us the ability to create a lot of extra damaging towers. Now, this layout was really good for us. This was a nice indoor layout. It had a lot of corridors, it had a lot of choke points, and it made building the towers relatively on the easier side of things. But not all maps are going to be like this. Some open area maps will be a little bit more stressful. They'll be a little bit more wide open. But with Blight Ravaged, one of the cool things that you can do is you can actually fish and buy ideal layouts for you. If you're somebody who can successfully do wide open areas, you usually can get them a little bit cheaper than indoor closed areas. If you're somebody that needs the comfort of an indoor closed area, you can buy the indoor closed area. But just like that, once you understand the outright basics of how to do things, you'll never really need to attack. The only thing that you'll have to really worry about with your Blighted maps and Blight Ravaged maps is to just build towers. You can build all the towers that you want. You'll never really have any issues. And you can see very simply, very easily, very early in a league scenario, as long as you have ring annoyance, you'll be able to just do, you know, pretty much anything that you want without really struggle at all. And this becomes a really good way to like make a ton of currency early. You'll be able to kill mobs. You can freeze mobs. Mobs are going to get stuck. They're not going to move. You can see right there, that guy is just completely stuck. There's bosses that are lined up right there, and you know, you're just pretty much good to go. Now, the same thing can be said for regular Blighted maps, and we'll talk about regular Blighted maps in a minute. Let this map finish up, and we'll see in a second, you know, everything is just good to go. Like, there's nothing left to do. The only bad side to this is sometimes the mobs, they get stuck. It takes a little bit of a while for the mobs to die. It's Blight Ravaged. It's an Uber map. It's not supposed to be easy. It's not supposed to be quick. And you can see we didn't attack. Our gear played no factor at all other than to keep us alive. The mobs never even hit us. We took out all of our cast when stunned, so none of our abilities were active. None of our abilities were even on. We have 0 mana. We never lost health. We never lost anything. And all of our gear was completely useless. And essentially, you could have done this on a naked character. But this is a really good step to getting into Blight on day one. These Blight Ravaged maps are not very expensive usually on day one, and the return on them is usually really good. So you should be able to, you know, get into a map, run these maps, and be able to turn some sort of profit very, very, very early. You'll see tons of jewelers, tons of fusings, tons of everything, and it'll just be the exact same scenario. Like I had mentioned earlier, the biggest trick to doing this and the thing that makes this work as well as it does is the fact that amber oils are reducing the cost of these towers to literally next to nothing. And you get to the point here where you can just spam a whole lot of towers and just kind of clear your way through everything relatively easily. So like you see these guys here, they're stuck. Well, we'll just build a bunch of towers. We'll get them killed relatively quick. We don't have to worry about anything. They'll fall over and die. And then we'll be done with the map. Pretty easy peasy, lemon squeezy. Now, if you don't know how to make currency in an early league scenario, or you're like me and mapping gets a little boring, or you start to struggle with things, Blight becomes an essentially free way to make a little bit of currency. You have to start by investing obviously into maps. You have to start by getting ring annoyance, but something very, very simple that you can do. And then before you know it, you're just pretty much off to the races, clearing all kinds of content, getting all kinds of free loot, and just reinvesting and investing both into your character and into the farming strategy to make you, you know, pretty strong. Now this mob here, he's almost dead. And then as soon as he dies now, you know, we'll have access to all kinds of crazy loot. Blighted maps and Blight Ravaged maps on day one are going to just give you tons of oils, tons of chaos, tons of everything. And if you can do these relatively early in a league start environment, you'll be able to print pretty much whatever you want. You can see there's all kinds of currency popping out of these things that's just out of this world. That's not including all of the it's not including all of the I-86 bases that are coming out of Blighted Ravage themselves. Now, because this is a standard environment and this loot is irrelevant, we're gonna go back to town. Now, before you say to me, but hey man, I can't do Blight Ravage maps. Those are really difficult. Those are really hard. Can you walk me through a regular Blighted map? Well, a regular Blighted map, like I had mentioned, is gonna be the exact same thing as the Blighted Ravage map that we just did. Essentially, we're going to take our regular Blighted map and we're gonna do the exact same thing. We're gonna take 3 amber oils. We're gonna reduce the cost of pathing and building of our towers next to nothing. And then we're gonna take our map and we're gonna do the exact same thing. We're gonna bring it back to our currency tab. We're gonna chisel our map. We're gonna alch our map. We're gonna make sure that our map isn't affected by anything weird, like monsters can't be stunned, monsters can't be this, monsters can't be that, any of the same things that we talked about earlier in this video. And then we're gonna do the exact same thing. We're gonna bring it over here and we're gonna run our regular Blighted map. The big thing to take away with regular Blighted maps is because regular Blighted maps are so much easier than Blighted or Blight Ravaged maps, we won't even need our ring annoyance inside of a regular Blighted map. We're gonna do the exact same thing that we did the last time. The big key difference here is because we're doing a regular Blighted map and not a Blight Ravaged map, we're gonna be able to build a lot more damaging towers to essentially just kind of cover all of our bases. You can see right away, because these mobs are really going to just blow up very easily and very simply, we can build tons and tons of towers. And these towers will pretty much handle all of our mobs and all of our issues. And as you get stronger and your character gets more gear, you'll be able to start killing mobs yourself. and you'll be able to just kind of go through everything relatively easily. A big question a lot of people have is, what is the best Blight build? What is the best way to do this? What is the best way to do everything? And essentially any build that can ignite, any build that can proliferate, any build that can poison, any build that can explode will be the essential, you know, big ticket blighted killing map. Now, we got really lucky on this layout. The way these towers spawned, they spawned in a way that we could just build a whole bunch of damaging towers. We only have one major choke point currently to work on. And as soon as the timer gets a little bit deeper into the map, I'm sure the lanes will expand a little bit and we'll be able to build more towers. And you can see, like, we could just, because the towers are so cheap, we could just kind of like come over here. We could build this tower up and we can do this. And then you're going to see once again right here at this choke point, we're just going to build a whole, you know, the same thing. Tier 3 chilling, tier 3 fisting, tier 3 empowering, and we're just going to build some damaging towers. Now, something really important that needs to note, I probably should have talked about this earlier, is the reason we build the tier 3 of these is these towers will stun mobs, and when you upgrade them to tier 4, they have different effects and they no longer do the same thing. So empowering towers, for example, empower your towers, but at tier 4, weaken enemies or empower the player. Not something we're really aiming for, as we don't want to empower the player or weaken the enemies. We want to empower our towers because we're playing tower defense, and our towers will do all of the work. Now you see here, we have a really interesting situation where, like, we really don't have a choke point. We don't have a whole lot of towers, and that's going to happen. And this is going to be part of the thing that's going to change up everything. But behold, shortly afterwards, Cassia is going to provide, and she's going to give you towers. And it's just a matter of keeping calm. Now you see there, sometimes it happens. Sometimes mobs will leak and there's nothing you can do about it. So you need to relatively stay on top of what's going on so that you don't accidentally have your leakage. Nobody wants to be out with their homies and be leaking all of their mobs all over the place, or nobody wants to be out to a fine dining establishment and then their date finds out that they're just leaking their mobs. So as long as you're keeping calm, secure, cool, and you're keeping your leaks under control, you shouldn't fail these maps. In theory, you shouldn't fail these maps. As you see there, sometimes things happen and, you know, it's just out of your control. Maybe you laughed a little too hard. Maybe you sneezed a little too hard. And something, you know, sometimes, you know, you just pee a little, but it's okay, man. It's okay. Nobody's here to judge. It's going to be fine. It's going to be absolutely fine. Just keep cool. Don't point out your mistakes. Don't let anybody know that you have any problems, and just keep building towers and building towers, and you're going to be just fine. You know, nothing's going to happen. You're going to get everything completely under control. You're going to have more damaging towers than you know what to do with. You're going to have your, you know, your secure areas where your mobs are going to be stunned into everything, and you're just going to be fine. Now, note, if you do fail some maps, it is okay. It happens to the best of us. I have failed plenty of Blighted maps, and these are all I do all league long. I have had friends who have failed Blighted maps. Sometimes you just lose, and it's out of your control. Do not get discouraged. Do not get upset. Do not feel bad about yourself. Do not worry about burning the currency. You will make the currency back. Everything will go great. Everything will go fine. You know, and if you're stuck and you're confused and you didn't watch this live when this was done, or you have questions in the future, you don't understand why you're doing certain things, you can come ask in Twitch chat, you can come ask in YouTube, you can leave a comment down below. Just don't be that weird, angry guy who is crazy. You know, just don't be crazy. We'll be more than happy to help you. But you see, we just did a Blight Ravaged map. We never attacked once. We never did anything. We did a regular map. We had no rings on, no nothing. And we never attacked. We took off our cast when stuns. We can't attack. Our Mage Blood, for the one guy screaming in the comment section about me wearing a Mage Blood, didn't do anything. My flask didn't do anything, as I never got hit. I never swung with my sword. My RF was never turned on. So please no craziness as my gear carried me, because it absolutely did not. And just like that, your Blighted map is done, and you just have a ton of loot and a ton of currency. But yeah, Blight is a great way to just make a bunch of money early. You don't really have to do anything. It's not gear reliant. It's not anything reliant. The only thing that makes it easier is to literally grab ring annoyance, and then before you know it, you two will be opening up your stack decks and profiting out of your mind before the one guy yells at me that I didn't open a stack deck. But that's really it. That's everything you need to know. That's literally everything. That is the whole shebang, the whole absolute shebang. You will be fine. It's a great way to secure currency. Like I said, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask. But this is definitely going to be one of the things that I do on my character. And if you're going to be like me and you're going to play Volcanic Fissure of Snaking, it is going to be an absolute great Blight Destroyer. You can even turn it into Cast When Stun, which is probably what I'm going to end up doing, which is also an insane Blight character. And that's really it. That's everything you need to know. That is Blight in a nutshell for day one. How to do Blight Ravaged on day one without gear, because that one guy earlier said it's impossible to get all the gear that you need to do it earlier, and you wouldn't have gear at all, and then that's everything you need to know. So for now, friends, I'm going to leave you with this. I'm going to be out of here, and I'll see you guys all in the next one.